Come back to me.
Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain 2067. This movie tells the story of a man sent to the future to save humanity living on depleted oxygen. When his mission is filled with mystery, can he return and save humanity? Let's find out in 2067. 2067 begins when in the year 2067, the Earth has been destroyed by climate change, and the human population on Earth is only 15% left. All plant life on Earth perished and human civilization has collapsed all over the world. In a time of extinction, only one Australian city has survived such drastic changes thanks to synthetic oxygen produced by a company called Chronocorp. The scene then shows two men named Ethan White and Jude who work at Chronocorp as technicians. They are repairing a nuclear power plant that is in an underground tunnel. Only such technology can light up an entire city and run the machines that will produce artificial synthetic oxygen for the survival of the city's inhabitants. However, the synthetic oxygen is quite expensive and the lower class can only get it by working as manual laborers in the company. Not only is the price high, but the synthetic oxygen also begins to be polluted and gradually causes a deadly lung disease known as the sickness. Chronocorp can't do much to solve the problem because they have no other way to produce oxygen due to the extinction of plants. People have begun to despair for their survival all over the city because day by day, the oxygen is getting depleted and polluted. All attempts to regrow extinct plants to produce oxygen also always fail. Many city dwellers decide to end their own lives because they feel they no longer have a future due to the increasing number of people suffering from the sickness, including Ethan's wife, named Zan. One day, Ethan is summoned before Regina Jackson, one of the higher-ups at Chronocorp, who shows him a prototype time machine, the Chronicle. Regina revealed that the prototype time machine was worked on by a quantum physicist named Dr. Richard White, who is also Ethan's father. Before the death of Dr. Richard White 20 years ago, scientists received a radio signal from 400 years in the future with a message to specifically send Ethan to the future. The message implies that there is still life on Earth 400 years from now. Regina and the scientists firmly believe that someone in the future who sent a message to them intends to help humanity in the present to survive. Hoping to find a cure for the sickness and prevent the extinction of humankind, Regina then asks Ethan to be willing to be sent to the future and find the person who sent the message. Ethan then refused Regina's request because he might never be able to return to the present. Moreover, his wife was seriously ill and he didn't want to leave her. Jude, who also played Ethan's guardian after his parents died, tried to convince him by saying that he could save Zan's life in the future and his wife would no longer have to suffer by breathing artificial oxygen. Ethan then remembered his childhood when his father forced a device into his hand. The device was embedded in Ethan's hand until now because he couldn't get it off. Frustrated, Ethan tried to remove the device from his hand, but still failed. After pondering Jude's words, Ethan finally decides to accept the noble mission of saving the world and humankind. Before leaving, he left a letter for his beloved wife as a keepsake. Long story short, scientists have prepared special clothes that can minimize the possibility of injury when he is in the passage of time and arrives on Earth 400 years later. They then gave a special tool called Archie to Ethan which can be used to record the state of the Earth in the future and also serves as a communication tool. Ethan finally made it out of the passage of time and landed in the future. His protective clothing caught fire from the friction in the atmosphere. He is shocked to find himself stranded in a lush rainforest, with only the device permanently attached to his wrist by his father as a child and Archie, the only equipment that still works. Ethan then attempts to track his whereabouts but fails due to the absence of a working satellite. But Archie detects a building not far from his location. After following Archie's instructions, Ethan finally finds the entrance to an abandoned bunker. Near the entrance to the bunker, he finds a human skeleton that turns out to be his own, complete with a very worn-looking Archie and a device on his wrist. He tries to turn on the worn-out Archie to find out what happened before his death. He heard his own voice talking to someone else, then gunshots. Ethan also thought that someone had shot him in the head because there was a hole in his skull. Ethan decided to spend the night near the bunker, then ate the fruit that he could find because he was already hungry. However, unbeknownst to him, the fruit turns out to be poisonous and makes him hallucinate. Ethan saw a bright light fall from the sky and instantly he fainted. When he came to his senses, he was surprised by the appearance of Jude in front of him. Jude said that he was sent to save him because after he entered the passage of time, no signs of his life were transmitted through the Chronicle. The next day, after Ethan recovers from poisoning, Ethan and Jude try to find another entrance to the bunker. They followed Archie's lead to a secret door that finally opened and turned out to be the door that led to the Chronicle lab. Ethan and Jude find a computer whose screen displays a welcome message for Ethan and prompts him to press the enter key in the lab. After he pressed the button, suddenly the device on his wrist stabbed his hand until it bleeds. The drops of blood were then matched against a DNA sample on a computer and found to be a match. Ethan then gains full access to control of the Chronicle, which is set to auto-reactivate within 4 hours. However, Ethan felt something odd because the light on his wrist device had now turned green, exactly the same as the device he had found on his skeleton outside the bunker. He assumed that his future self would do the same thing as his current self and that someone would eventually shoot him in the head after he activated the time machine. In his panic, he accidentally presses a button that shows the holographic recording left by Dr. Richard White. Ethan and Jude are shown as Ethan's father and scientists are testing the Chronicle for the first time in the footage. Richard then tried to send a voice message, but he was then shocked after receiving a message from the future to send his own son. Regina immediately ordered the scientists to send someone to the future. However, a scientist confirmed that this was impossible because the safe delivery of living things through time required an operational link from both parties. And the data they obtained indicated that there had been a future power failure, in the year 2074 to be exact. At the same time, the holographic recording suddenly disappeared and the emergency lights suddenly flashed. A confused Ethan and Jude try to find out what happened. As it turned out, their activation of the Chronicle had triggered damage to its nuclear power core, which could cause a nuclear explosion if not treated in time. This is the cause of the power failure shown by previous scientists' data. Ethan is getting frustrated, then begins to question Jude's arrival in the future. Jude tries to avoid Ethan's question and insists that he is only tasked with saving him. Long story short, Ethan and Jude head to the center of the nuclear power core that should still be where it is in the underground tunnel. However, when they arrived at the city, the state of the city where he lived had been destroyed and overgrown with weeds. Ethan also concludes that humans have become extinct and the Earth is starting to recover itself. Ethan and Jude then realize that the drug from the sickness has never been found because the skeletons of the entire town's population are still dependent on synthetic oxygen. Ethan also finds the skeleton of his wife, Zan, still clutching his farewell letter. Ethan then remembers his past when he was a child. At that time, shortly after his father's death, Ethan and his mother were attacked by a criminal. The criminal then kills his mother and snatches Ethan's oxygen mask. Little Ethan, dying of lack of oxygen, thought he would die soon. But then Jude came to his rescue. Back in the future, a frustrated Ethan feels that this journey through time is starting to be futile because in the future all humans are dead, including his wife. Jude tried to calm Ethan and try to revive his fighting spirit. However, while Jude is trying to cheer him up, Ethan recognizes Jude's voice from a recording he found on Archie's device that was taken moments before his future self was killed. Jude, who heard the recording, couldn't believe that he would kill Ethan in the future. Jude, feeling anxious, pulled out a gun and pointed it at Ethan. He then said that he was just trying to save Ethan from himself. Jude then directs Ethan at gunpoint to the reactor control room under the ruins of the city. When they got there, they found out that the electrical wires there were short-circuited. However, when Ethan approached the control center of the nuclear reactor, the airtight mode immediately activated and began to close the airtight door. Jude immediately grabbed the door and motioned for Ethan out, but Ethan refuses and is determined to repair the damage. Ethan told Jude that the power line had to be switched off without oxygen to prevent an explosion. After saying that, Ethan then pushed Jude to close the airtight door. Ethan tried his best to switch the power off in a room devoid of oxygen and initiate a manual reboot. He manages to reroute electrical power, preventing destruction and reopening the control room. Seeing Ethan passed out from out of breath, Jude immediately broke into the door and saved him. With 37 minutes remaining, the two then rush back to the Chronicle lab, where Ethan finds another exit that opens the entrance next to his skeleton. Ethan then felt disappointed because his skeleton was still in the same place, which indicated that all the things he had done earlier had not yielded any results at all. After that, Ethan replaces Archie's worn-out battery with Archie's new one and rolls back his father's log since his father died. He finds out that his mission was fake from the start because Regina Jackson intended to escape from her dying time to the future with a chosen few to start a new life, not wanting to save the world and all of humanity. While his father, Richard, tried to maintain his hope that a reply message from the future must have been sent by someone, indicating that there is still hope for all of humanity. Regina intentionally sent Jude to kill Ethan after Ethan managed to reactivate the portal in the future. Jude finally admitted that he was indeed in cahoots with Regina. Jude then tells about Richard, who opposes Regina's wishes, who intends to send someone to the future by throwing him into the intended year. According to Richard, this is very risky because it can endanger lives. Richard then reveals that he has taken action to prevent the misuse of the time machine by inserting a DNA sample of Ethan, so that only Ethan can activate the Chronicle in the future. Hearing this, Regina immediately became furious and killed Richard. Jude is then appointed as Ethan's guardian to ensure that Ethan will be dispatched in time to repair the power failure and stabilize the time portal. When Ethan returns to the year 2067, Jude will kill him. After hearing Jude's confession, Ethan tries to turn off the Chronicle, but Jude tries to stop him. When Jude is about to carry out his mission to kill Ethan, Ethan says that Jude's actions won't change anything because they will all die in the future. When Ethan refuses to fight him, Jude finally realizes that he has made a mistake. Jude, overcome with guilt for Ethan, then commits suicide by shooting himself in the head. Just before Regina can carry out her plan to send the chosen people to the future, Ethan sends a message that reads, "Send Ethan White to the past in the same year his father received the message when he was a child." Ethan then sends a copy of the video footage of Regina's murder of Richard White as well as hundreds of plants that can later be used to revive the ecosystem of living things and improve the future in the year 2067. After that, Ethan destroys the Chronicle. Regina Jackson was eventually arrested after Archie sent a videotape of the murder to the national news station. After that, scientists began to revitalize planet Earth using the plants sent by Ethan. Zand, Ethan's wife, gets a flower sent from the future along with a plant. Ethan looks relieved after destroying the time machine, even though in the end he will never be able to go back to the year 2067 and be reunited with his wife. The film ends by showing Ethan realizing that his body has disappeared. Ethan then ran towards the city and found the city where he lived previously destroyed, is now inhabited and looks more developed. Ethan was pleased because his struggle to save the world and humankind was not in vain.